when a film about human nature cannot be released in South Korea. This means that besides the plot itself being ruthless to the core, the scale is even unimaginably large. Just like the film we are going to talk about today. Not only does it use a confined space to build a miniature model of human civilization, fully exposing the killing in desperate survival situations, compromised, resource plundering, and power struggles, completely tearing apart the moral facade of human civilization. It also uses 4 chapters, humanity, space, time, and people, to deconstruct the underlying logic of human nature's collapse and the cruel essence of survival. Most importantly, completely abandons the possibility of redemption, pushing the despair over humanity's vicious cycle and unprecedented peak. Next, it takes everyone together to deconstruct the dark undercurrents of human nature in this Purgatoria cage. The story opens with a cruise ship, converted from a retired warship, sailing through the waves, and the first chapter, humanity, thus begins. The people gathered on the deck come from all walks of life, including a senator vying for the South Korean presidency and his son, Adam, Eve and her boyfriend, who are on their honeymoon, a gang boss wielding violence and his subordinates, the captain and crew maintaining order, and special workers operating on the fringes, and ordinary tourists from all walks of life. As a miniature human society takes shape, the original sin of power, hidden within the hierarchical order, instantly emerges.
아이고, 의원님, 안녕하십니까?
자,
여행 중에 불편한 거 있으면 언제든지 말씀하십시오. 편하게 모시도록 하겠습니다.
Seeing that the senator does not explicitly refuse, Boss immediately smells an opportunity. He immediately takes people to escort the father and son back to their room. Who would have thought that they had barely walked far when they encounter a strange deity? He shows no reaction to the crowd. He merely silently collects the scattered soil on the ship. Compared to the deity's detachment from worldly affairs, special practitioners, after seeing this situation, immediately approach to seek an opportunity. However, they are shocked to discover that despite the same ticket price, the senator not only stays in a suite, but the accompanying facilities are also extremely complete and luxurious. The intense injustice makes the 3 of them unable to remain calm. But what responds to them is the crew's merciless mockery. And Boss, who rushes over upon hearing the commotion, directly insults and drives the 3 of them away.
그래, 죽고 싶다. 어쩔래?
何も間違えたこと言ってないじゃないですか。
또 뭐야 이씨. 바닥 확 던져버리기 전에 꺼져.
どうして暴力振るんですか？あなたたち何なのよ。
But he is not there to help them. Instead, he has other motives. Eve's unsuspecting boyfriend still thinks he encounters a senator who cares for the common people. When he discovers the dinner on the table is far more luxurious than everyone else's, he immediately rushes forward to argue. As expected, he is threatened by Boss. Fortunately, other tourists agree in time, and he avoids physical harm. As the voices of dissatisfaction grow louder, Senator worries about his image being damaged, so he quickly stands up and apologizes. He also asks the captain to change his food to the same standard as everyone else's.
대야와 함장, 우리도 일반 객실로 바꿔줘.
그게 일반 객실은 이미 인원이 다 찼습니다. 객실만 좀 이해해 주세요.
He observes their sincere attitude. Eve's boyfriend turns and leaves contentedly. Unbeknownst to him, this impulsive act not only causes Eve to be brutally humiliated by many, but also costs him his own life. As dusk completely falls, the desires and bestiality suppressed by civilized order instantly awaken. Specialized workers move through various rooms, exchanging for stakes of survival. 4 university students gather together to drink and indulge. As for the oldest individuals, they even set up schemes to swindle others out of their money. Only Eve and her boyfriend are still immersed in their own world, unaware of the nightmare that is about to unfold.
와 죽인다 씨발. 야 먼저 먹는 사람이 임자다.
Compared to the blatant bestial desires of the 4 drunk individuals, the senator only needs to reveal a hint of intention, and the boss immediately understands. However, he never imagines that 4 individuals have already rushed into Eve's room and extend their evil claws towards her. Meanwhile, her boyfriend is taken to the hallway and brutally beaten. even though Adam passes by in time and successfully drives the individuals away. This tragedy is already irreversible. Eve's boyfriend is about to go back to save her when he is ambushed by the boss and completely loses his ability to move. He is then cruelly eliminated and thrown into the sea. Eve, who with great difficulty escapes the clutches, then falls into boss's hands again and is then sent to Senator. The crew members who should be maintaining order are lost in pleasure and completely unaware. Only the deity collecting soil witnesses all the evil deeds. After Senator leaves, Boss directly pushes Adam into the room and closes the door. Although he is already mentally prepared, when he sees the unconscious Eve, Adam is still somewhat disbelieving. But ultimately, the pity in his heart is still completely consumed by desire. After Eve wakes up, only she herself remains in the room. She ignores the pain in her body and hurries to look for her boyfriend. She is completely unaware of Boss and Senator, father and son, standing above.
만약에 저 애가 아이를 가진다면 우리 셋 중에 누구 아이일까요?
그게 무슨 개소리입니까?
공부끼리 술이나 한잔 합시다.
At the same time, Eve discovers bloodstains and a mat on the deck. Realizing her boyfriend has been eliminated, she completely loses all hope of living. But just as she prepares to jump off the ship, Deity stops her, as Eve gets her pressure points struck and faints. The second chapter, Space, begins. When Eve wakes up, the cruise ship has already left the ocean and floats above the clouds at 10,000 meters. This strange sight immediately throws everyone into chaos. Seeing no trace of panic on Deity's face, Eve senses something is wrong and immediately follows him. When she discovers that in the cabin, there are not only 2 newly hatched chicks but also various plants growing. Eve instantly understands everything, but what she cannot understand is how Deity knew in advance that the ship would ascend and why he stopped her. But the other person does not respond. Instead, he picks up a newly sprouted seedling. Meanwhile, Senator learns that they have completely lost contact with the outside world and instructs Boss to control the food on the ship. Because he knows very well that in this situation, controlling the food means controlling absolute power on this ship.
안 됩니다. 부식은 이 배의 주인인 우리가 관리합니다. 저희가 공평하게 배식하겠습니다.
아니, 내가 직접 이 친구들과 부식을 관리할 거야.
이 배의 책임자는 저고 지금은 비상사태입니다.
그러니까 내가 관리한다. 아무도 부식에 손대지 못하게.
There's protest upon seeing this, as they clearly prefer to trust the captain over the senator, who is backed by dark forces. But just as everyone prepares to resist, the situation takes another sharp turn for the worse. Thus, the senator, relying on absolute violence, completely takes control of the ship's core resources. And strict class stratification also forms on this isolated cruise ship. The food ration for ordinary tourists is directly reduced to 1 rice ball. The captain and crew, relying on the importance of their positions, temporarily retain their rations. As for the senator, he completely tears off his disguise and wantonly enjoys a luxurious dining standard. As for the dissatisfaction of ordinary tourists, the senator, well versed in power dynamics, completely disregards it. They directly play good cop, bad cop with Boss, relying on the double strangulation of empty promises and bullets to easily resolve the situation again. The captain, unable to bear it, tries to stop them. However, a cold threat responds to him.
먹고 싶은 대로 먹고 먹을 것 떨어지면 우리끼리 서로 잡아먹자고.
에? 어떻게 그렇게 끔찍한 소리?
그런 지옥 보고 싶지 않으면 입 닥치고 내 말 잘 들어. 알았어?
The captain, hearing this, becomes even more certain of his thoughts. He then leads people to the deepest warehouse. He takes out the grenades left by the fleet. He plans to seize the opportunity to eliminate Senator and his group. Meanwhile, Deity picks out valuable things from the leftovers. Eve is very confused by this. She does not understand why Deity wastes time. Senator has once again lowered the food quota. The people cannot possibly last until these seedlings grow and bear fruit. However, that hopeful smile still responds to her. Eve does not want to sit idly by and wait for death. She then rushes into Senator's room alone to question him. As a result, she unexpectedly learns that Senator and his son had also compromised her. At this moment, hatred instantly replaces the gratitude in Eve's heart. No matter how Adam explains, it is useless. Deity offers no comfort for this. He merely separates urine to cultivate plants in silence. Clearly, in the face of survival, everything in civilized society is meaningless. What happens next further proves this point. The three people who set up the scam successfully snatch some food by launching a surprise attack. But before they can finish eating, Boss arrives with his men. Even though they are severely beaten, they still frantically stuff food into their mouths. Seeing this situation, Senator realizes that everyone's patience has reached its breaking point. So he plans to prepare weapons before the situation completely spirals out of control. Realizing that conflict is unavoidable, Boss voluntarily offers his weapon, citing the protection of Senator's safety as his reason. But neither of them expects their conversation. The captain, hiding upstairs, overhears everything. The senator, unaware of this, completely drops his facade. He not only enjoys his food in front of the tourists but also, despite Adam's attempts to stop him, throws the leftover chicken leg onto the deck. The starving crowd completely loses their humanity and pounces like beasts, frantically fighting for it. Boss's subordinate sees this and immediately smells an opportunity. He secretly takes food to the cabin of the sex workers to exchange for their humble obedience. The person in charge of guarding them even extorts money from the tourists using food. But now, the civilized order on the ship has completely degenerated. No one cares about dignity or boundaries. They rush forward and scramble for the food. Boss, who rushes over upon hearing the commotion, tries to suppress them but is ultimately discovered by the senator. He quickly rushes forward to apologize. What he receives, however, is a series of heavy slaps. A subordinate, unable to stand it, tries to intervene, but his mouth is covered before he can finish speaking. Seeing that the senator is about to act, Boss quickly bows his head and apologizes again. Although he saves his subordinate's life, he completely shatters the prestige he has built up over many years.
부식 좀 빼돌렸다고 너무한 거 아닙니까?
그러게 왜 비밀을 줘, 이 미친 새끼야!
좀 잘못하기는 했지만 왜 우리가 그 사람한테 굽신거려 합니까? 막말로 여기서 우리가 최고 아닙니까? 총은 왜 준 겁니까?
Boss does not answer and goes straight to Senator's room to demand an explanation. As expected, he again receives a useless empty promise. At the same time, Eve, who is helping tend to the plants, suddenly feels intense nausea. But before she can figure out what is happening, Deity presses his ear to her lower abdomen. Then he even brings a newly sprouted seedling. Realizing this is morning sickness, Eve completely breaks down. She wants to use a knife to remove this seed of sin. However, Deity stops her again, and she is tightly bound to the fence. No matter how much she cries and struggles, it is useless. When she sees Deity bring the seedling again, Eve suddenly realizes that her boyfriend is the first one touch her that night. Therefore, she misinterprets Deity's expressed hope. She believes the child in her womb is her boyfriend's. Adam, who arrives, overhears their conversation. Although he cannot be sure if it is his child, he still takes the food and brings it to Eve without hesitation. Just then, Senator's voice comes through the broadcast. Hearing that food will be reduced to one meal every 3 days, everyone loses their sanity and rushes towards the warehouse. Boss's subordinate tries to intimidate them but gets beaten up and falls to the ground. Seeing that everyone is completely out of control, Senator pulls the trigger without hesitation. Facing the threat of death, everyone's hunger instinct is instantly overcome by fear. They all drop their food and turn to flee. Deity silently walks forward and drags away the body in front of Senator. What Eve does not expect is that Deity does not dispose of it normally. Instead, he disassembles the bones one by one, then thoroughly dries them, and throws them into a pulverizer to grind them into repurposed. It is not until Eve sees Deity transplanting plants into the repurposed material that she suppresses her fear. However, the conflict on the ship, the situation completely reaches an irreconcilable point. Seeing the captain pulls out the safety pin, Senator quickly lowers his stance and promises to share half of the food.
아니! 니들만 죽으면 다 우리 건데 내가 미쳤냐?
씨발! 당신 말 믿다가 이게 무슨 개죽음이야!
신이 있는지 없는지 어디 한번 가서 봐봐. 잘 가라 이 쓰레기들아.
Seeing this, Senator quickly picks up the grenade and throws it into the pipe. Thus, the captain not only fails to harm anyone but also has his remaining grenades confiscated. This accelerates the unfolding of the tragedy. Soon, Senator's voice comes through the broadcast. Learning that all the food will be distributed, everyone rushes towards the warehouse without thinking. Eve also wants to go with them but is stopped by Deity. When everyone arrives at the warehouse, the food inside has already been completely moved out. When they try to escape, the exit has already been closed by Boss's subordinates. Then Senator takes the grenade. He throws them into the crowd one after another, and as explosions continuously sound, several exits completely fall silent. Those who luckily survive also cannot escape the boss's subordinates' butcher knives. The scene, like a living hell, makes the captain unable to endure it anymore. He directly splashes gasoline onto the only remaining food. Senator hastily pulls the trigger to stop him, but it is completely useless, as the food is completely engulfed by flames. The third chapter, Time, thus begins. After this horrific purge, only 5 survivors remain on the ship. Looking at the corpses everywhere, Eve shows no fear. She just silently follows Deity to separate bones and then converts them into nutrients. After all the plants in the cabin are transplanted, the two then sow one seed after another on the remaining corpses. But as the hunger grows stronger, Eve's gaze can no longer move away from the chicks. Deity sees this and immediately drives her out of the room. And Senator, who does not know there is still food on the ship, completely sheds his aura as a presidential candidate and prepares to use his own flesh and blood to extend Adam's life. The result is, not surprisingly, met with refusal. As for Boss, he plans to consume Eve, the cleanest among them, but just as he is about to act, Senator stops him.
그만해.
그거 내가 준 총이야.
그러니까 그만해 이 새끼야.
Seeing that the bullets are gone, Boss punches Senator down, then picks up the gun and loads bullets in. Clearly, he never truly submits, and this fulfills the old saying that he who raises a tiger will eventually be devoured. And he who plays with fire will be burned. Looking at his completely lifeless father, Adam grabs Eve and runs. But Boss does not chase the two of them at all. Instead, he directly finds the only remaining special practitioner. As warm blood flows from his lips, the cruise ship completely degenerates back to primitive society. Soon after, Boss, who has nothing to eat, turns his gaze back to Eve.
あんたの子供かもしれないのよ。銃で撃たれたらどれだけ痛いか。
진짜 아이를 가진 거야.
Receiving Eve's affirmative reply, Boss immediately puts away the gun. But before he can finish speaking, he faces Adam's ridicule. Seeing the two men argue over who is the child's father, Eve snatches the gun from Boss's waist and points it at both men. At this moment, she no longer cares who the child's father is. The only thing she cares about is which of the two men will not eat the child after it is born. After a life or death decision, Eve ultimately pulls the trigger on Boss. Even with only 3 survivors left, Deity still does not open the door for them. He simply takes out an iron box silently. When she discovers a piece of meat inside, Eve does not hesitate and immediately returns to the room with the iron box. What she does not expect is that as soon as she finishes the meat, Adam reaches out his hand. Clearly, the fundamental nature of humanity does not change with environmental shifts. As his body's energy is once again depleted, a desperate Adam sets his sights on his father. When he discovers the body has already decayed and spoiled, making it impossible to swallow, he once again goes to Deity's cabin.
もういい加減にして。
미쳤어? 너까지 왜 이래? 문 열어! 문 열어!
お腹が空きました赤ちゃんのためにも何か食べないと
Looking at the steaming meat, Eve then realizes that they were eating deity's flesh. She quickly apologizes. What she receives is still that hopeful smile. Relying on deity's flesh, the two survived the long night. Then, driven by hunger, they return to deity's cabin. What greets their eyes is a pool of dried blood. And on a nearby table, there is a large barrel of meat chunks. Eve, sensing something is wrong, follows the footprints to the deck. She discovers that after drawing a symbol, the footprints extend straight to the edge of the boat and they completely disappear into the sea of clouds. Clearly, deity uses his own life to buy them time to live. Note the symbol on the ground, it is the Mobius strip. Symbolizing cycles, the scene hints that what they see is an endless cycle that they can never escape. As for how this cycle operates, they continue to watch. As the meat in the barrel is consumed, Adam is completely consumed by hunger, losing his sanity.
やめて
이거라도 꺼내 먹을까? 어?
ダメ守ってくれるって約束したじゃない
Eve sees the situation and quickly grabs an axe nearby. Adam, caught off guard, is directly struck in a vital spot and falls to the ground. Lifeless, his corpse then becomes Eve's food to survive. All the plants in the cabin bear fruit and the chickens they raise begin to lay eggs. Eve finally gives birth to a baby boy. The fourth chapter, titled Humanity, thus begins. Seeing her son pick up Boss's gun, Eve's long-buried memories instantly explode in her mind. But because her son is too young, she does not step forward to stop him. After all, weapons never distinguish between good and evil. What truly determines if it is a weapon of destruction or salvation is always the person holding the gun. 17 years pass in the blink of an eye. The cruise ship completely sheds its blood and silence, transforming into a vibrant Garden of Eden. Eve's son also grows into an adult. However, the film's cruelest and most perception-shattering blade falls at this moment. Finally, I briefly explains why deity quietly cultivates plants and protects new life in the cabin, never preventing any evil act. I mentions that from the very beginning, this cruise ship, converted from a retired warship, is a miniature model of human civilization, which is the Earth they rely on for survival. Everything that happens on it is the history of human civilization repeating itself over and over. Considering these 2 points and looking back at deity's actions, the audience can easily see that he represents the natural laws that nurture all things. Era 4. He only provides the spark of new life, never interferes with human choices, and never cover for humanity's bestiality. As for this plot point at the end, completes this endless loop of humanity while also telling them that the boundary between civilization and barbarism is always just a thought away. Holding on to the bottom line is the fundamental essence of being human. As for the true nature of humanity, whether it is evil, I welcomes everyone to leave their opinions in the comment section. Alright, today's content ends here. See you in the next episodes.